You know, sometimes life blindsides you when you least expect it. I thought I had everything under control, the job, the money, the love of my life. At least, I believed she was the love of my life. Looking back now, I realize that phone call should have been my first red flag. Before I continue the story, kindly like, subscribe and tell us where you are listening from. It was the night before my flight. I had been packing my bags, feeling that familiar rush of excitement that always comes before a new journey. My company had just extended my contract abroad, which meant more money, more influence, and more security for my future. I had plans, big plans, not just for myself, but for us, for me and my wife. I thought I was working hard to build a future she'd be proud of. But then the phone rang. It was her. Her voice, broken, trembling, full of tears. "Baby," she whispered, "why do you have to leave? I'm going to miss you so much if you go. Can't you just stay? For me?" Now, imagine hearing that from the woman you love most in this world. I paused, holding the phone close, her sobs echoing in my ear. My heart clenched. I thought she was just emotional, afraid of being alone. So I did what any loving husband would do, I softened my voice, reassured her, "I'll miss you too, my love. But this is for us. For our future. Trust me, it's going to be worth it." She sniffled, muttered something I couldn't fully catch, and hung up after saying she loved me. At the time, I smiled. I thought her tears were genuine. I thought her fears came from love. But now I know better. Those weren't tears of love, they were tears of guilt. The next morning, I boarded my flight with a calm heart. I remember staring out the plane window, thinking about her face, her words, the way her voice cracked when she said she'd miss me. My chest tightened with affection. I kept replaying her words, thinking, damn, I'm lucky to have a woman who loves me this much. But ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something, sometimes the person you think would die for you is the same one digging your grave. When that plane lifted off the runway, I had no idea that the very woman I was trusting with my heart, was planning to trade my entire life away like it meant nothing. Now here's where it gets interesting. See, my company wasn't just some small business. It was my blood, my sweat, my identity. Years of sacrifices, sleepless nights, and risks that could have ended me, but instead, they built me into the man I had become. And she knew all of it. She knew how much it meant to me. So tell me, what kind of person does it take to betray that? But I didn't know any of this yet. Not while I was flying above the clouds, sipping champagne, dreaming of better days. No. At that moment, I was blind. Naive. Maybe even a fool. The first night abroad, I sat in my hotel room and replayed her call. I missed her, I really did. I even considered cutting my trip short just to surprise her. And if I had, maybe, just maybe, I would have caught her in the act myself. But fate had something else planned. Because while I was unpacking my suitcase in a foreign country, while I was smiling at the thought of her curled up in bed missing me, she was already putting her plan into motion. She walked into the office of a powerful man. A man who, unbeknownst to her, wasn't just a wealthy businessman, he was my friend. My confidant. A man I trusted with more than just business, but with secrets. She didn't know that, of course. All she saw was a potential buyer, a man with deep pockets, someone who could help her build her new dream life, without me in it. And that's when she made her move. With my company documents in hand, with my trust cradled in her palms, she tried to sell everything I had worked for. My empire. My future. She wanted it gone, just like that. But betrayal has a funny way of circling back. Because the man she thought she could trick. He wasn't just anyone. He was mine. When my phone buzzed later that evening with his name on the screen, I thought it was just business as usual. I had no idea the next few seconds would shatter everything I believed about love, loyalty, and family. His voice was low, serious, laced with urgency. "Brother. I don't know how to tell you this, but your wife just left my office. She tried to sell me your company. At first, I laughed. I thought it was some kind of sick joke. But then he repeated it, word for word, and the blood in my veins turned to ice. I sat there, frozen, staring at the walls, trying to make sense of it. My wife. My partner. The woman who cried that she would miss me. She was ready to trade my life's work for a quick payday. And right there, in that moment, my heart broke, but something else was born. Revenge. You ever had a moment where the world just stopped moving? That's exactly what happened when I heard my friend's voice over the phone. Your wife tried to sell me your company, he said. Calm, steady, but heavy. I couldn't process it. For a split second, I thought maybe he was mistaken, maybe it was some kind of mix-up. My wife? The woman who cried on the phone, begging me not to leave. No. She couldn't possibly be the same person walking into his office with my company documents, trying to trade away everything I had built. But reality has a cruel way of tearing down your illusions. And this wasn't a dream. This was happening. I remember gripping the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. My chest burned, my ears rang, and for a few moments I couldn't breathe. I asked him to repeat himself. I needed to hear it again, as if saying it twice would make it clearer, more believable. He didn't hesitate. She came to me directly. With your documents. She thought I'd be interested in buying you out. But brother. I knew immediately something was wrong. That's why I called you. I couldn't just stand by and watch her destroy you. And that was it. The knife twisted in. Do you know what it feels like to realize the person you trusted most in this world is the same person plotting your downfall? It's like drowning in slow motion. My heart wanted to deny it, but my mind was already racing. How did she even get the documents? When did she plan all this? Was the phone call a cover-up, her way of distracting me while she set her scheme in motion? Every memory of her suddenly felt corrupted, poisoned, like nothing had ever been real. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling of that hotel room, and all I could hear was her voice, "I'll miss you if you go." Now I realized what she really meant was, "I'll miss the chance to betray you if you stay." That's when the rage hit. Slow at first, then like a storm ripping through me. The heartbreak was there, sure. But something darker was rising inside me. Something colder. Something sharper. I wasn't just hurt. I was betrayed. And betrayal doesn't go unanswered. I asked my friend to keep everything quiet, to act as if he hadn't spoken to me yet. I needed time to think. To plan. To strike. Because if there's one thing betrayal deserves, it's a response so precise, so devastating, that it leaves no room for redemption. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, staring at the city lights, my mind a battlefield. Part of me wanted to call her immediately, scream down the phone, demand an explanation. But the other part of me, the smarter part, knew better. Confrontation would only give her room to cover her tracks. I didn't want her excuses. I didn't want her lies. I wanted proof. I wanted justice. I wanted revenge. And I wasn't going to rush it. The next morning, I contacted the FBI. I laid everything out. Who I was, what she had done, the documents she had in her possession, and the attempt to sell them. At first, they asked questions, lots of them, but the weight of my company and the seriousness of the situation got their attention fast. They agreed to set up surveillance, to track her movements, and to catch her red-handed if she tried again. But you know what the hardest part was? Pretending. Pretending everything was normal while inside I was falling apart. Pretending to care about texts she sent me, pretending not to notice the fake love in her words. Every message from her now looked like a dagger dipped in poison. I realized then that the woman I loved, never really existed. She was an illusion, a mask she wore until the opportunity for betrayal came knocking. And what made it worse? She hadn't just planned this alone. She had help. Her family. People I had fed, supported, welcomed into my life like my own blood. They were part of it too, whispering in her ear, backing her up, helping her plot. The thought of them sitting around a table, laughing, planning how to strip me of everything, I swear, it made my blood boil. Days felt like years as I waited, working with the FBI from afar. Every update they gave me felt like salt in an open wound. She wasn't slowing down. She was relentless. Meetings, phone calls, pushing harder to get what she wanted. And then, finally, the moment came. The FBI confirmed they had enough. They were ready to move. I booked the earliest flight home, my hands trembling as I pressed the buttons. My heart wasn't racing anymore, it was steady, cold, focused. I wasn't flying home to save my marriage. No. That was already dead. I was flying home to bury it. The image played in my head over and over, her face when she realized the game was up, her shock when she saw me standing there, not broken, but stronger than ever. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she had done. I wanted her to know there would be no forgiveness, no second chances, no mercy. As the plane cut through the clouds, I whispered one thing to myself. You chose betrayal, now face the consequences. And that's exactly what I intended to deliver. When my plane touched down, I wasn't the same man who had left just days before. I boarded that flight as a husband, a provider, a dreamer. I stepped off it as something else entirely, a man who had tasted betrayal and was ready to serve justice cold. The FBI had been updating me throughout the flight. Every word they shared made my stomach churn. My wife wasn't slowing down. No, she was doubling down. She was convinced her plan was working. Meetings, phone calls, backroom deals, all of it continued while I was in the air, thousands of feet above, pretending to sleep as my heart grew heavier by the minute. By the time I landed, the trap was already set. I'll never forget that drive from the airport. My lawyer was waiting for me, a briefcase full of documents on the seat beside him. He didn't say much, he didn't have to. The look on his face told me everything. Sympathy, anger, but also respect. He knew what I was about to do, and he supported it. We drove in silence for a while. The city lights blurred through the window, but I wasn't seeing them. My mind was locked on one thing, her face. I imagined her smile, the one that once melted my heart. I imagined her laugh, the one that used to make me feel at home. But behind all that, I now saw only one thing, deception. The FBI van met us a few blocks away from my house. The agent in charge laid it all out, they had her. Documents in hand, evidence stacked sky high, and surveillance footage that painted the whole picture. Not just her, but her family too. Are you ready for this? The agent asked me, his voice calm, professional. I nodded. My throat was dry, my hands cold, but my resolve unshakable. We pulled around the corner, and that's when I saw it. Blue and red lights flashing in the dark. The FBI van parked at the curb. And inside, behind the tinted glass, shadows moving, her shadow. My wife. My so-called partner. My traitor. Time slowed. I stepped out of the car, the night air biting at my skin. The agents moved quickly, opening the back of the van. And there she was. Her eyes met mine, wide, frantic, terrified. Tears streaked her face, but not the kind of tears she'd shed on the phone when she begged me not to leave. No, these were different. These were the tears of a person whose mask had finally shattered. Please, she screamed. Baby, I can explain. Explain. My blood boiled at the word. Explain how you tried to sell my company. Explain how you plotted with your family to destroy me. Explain how you kissed me goodbye while sharpening the knife you planned to stab into my back. Her family sat beside her, equally pale, equally desperate, their mouths moving but their words lost in the roar of my heartbeat. I didn't care what excuses they had. For the first time, I felt nothing for them. No love. No pity. Nothing. Just a hollow emptiness where my heart used to be. The agent turned to me. "Do you want to say something before we take them in?" I looked at her one last time. Her hands pressed against the glass, shaking, begging. Her lips formed the words, "I'm sorry." But I wasn't sorry. I leaned in, my voice low, steady, deadly calm. "You thought you could play me. You thought you could trade my life for your greed. But here's the truth, you never knew the man you were betraying. And now, you'll never get the chance to." She sobbed, reaching out as if I might still change my mind. But there was no going back. The FBI van doors slammed shut, and with that sound, something inside me closed forever. The agents drove off, their tires crunching against the gravel, carrying her and her conspirators straight into the jaws of justice. I stood there, watching until the lights disappeared into the distance. The night suddenly felt quieter, heavier, as if the world itself was holding its breath. My lawyer placed the briefcase in my hand. Inside were the divorce papers. All I had to do was sign. But it wasn't just about ending a marriage anymore. No. This was about erasing her completely from my life, my legacy, my future. She had chosen betrayal, and now I was choosing something far stronger, freedom. I signed the documents that very night. My lawyer nodded, satisfied, but I wasn't done yet. No. This was just the beginning. Because revenge isn't a moment. It's a process. And I was just getting started. The night of her arrest didn't end with the slamming of those FBI van doors. No, that was just the opening act. The real performance began the next morning, when everything came crashing down around her, and I was there to watch it all unfold. I woke up with a strange sense of calm. You'd think I'd be restless, pacing, angry, but I wasn't. My rage had burned itself into something colder. Something sharper. Betrayal had already stabbed me once. I wasn't about to let it stab me twice. My lawyer met me for breakfast. He slid the signed divorce documents back across the table, stamped and official. The ink wasn't even dry, and yet it already felt like a lifetime had passed since I was the man who said, "I'll miss you too, my love." "Today they'll be arraigned," my lawyer said. "The FBI has enough evidence to lock them up tight." I nodded, taking a slow sip of my coffee. It was strange, how normal the world looked outside the cafe window. People laughing, rushing to work, kids holding their parents' hands. Life moved on like nothing had happened. But for me? My life had split in two. Before betrayal. And after. When we arrived at the courthouse, the FBI agents were already there. Cameras flashed, reporters swarmed, microphones shoved forward as the suspects were escorted in. And there she was, my wife, dressed in a cheap orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed, her once proud eyes red and swollen from crying. The crowd erupted with questions. Did you really try to sell your husband's company? Was your family involved in the conspiracy? Do you have anything to say in your defense? She kept her head low, but I could feel her searching for me. And when her eyes finally found mine in the crowd, everything stopped. For a brief second, I saw the woman I once loved. But then, just as quickly, I saw the stranger she had become, the betrayer, the conspirator, the liar. She mouthed the word, "Please." Her lips trembled. Her tears flowed. But do you know what I did? Nothing. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I didn't give her even a fraction of the man she once knew. Because that man was dead. The FBI led her family in right behind her. Her brother, her cousin, her mother, all of them shackled, all of them pale and broken. I almost laughed. These were the same people who had eaten at my table, smiled in my face, called me family. Now they stood in chains, caught in the web of their own greed. Inside the courtroom, I sat quietly as the charges were read. Attempted fraud. Conspiracy. Theft. The words echoed off the walls like thunder. Every syllable carved a deeper scar into what was left of our story. When it came time for the judge to ask if there were any victims who wished to speak, the room fell silent. All eyes turned toward me. I rose slowly, my footsteps heavy against the polished floor. When I reached the podium, I didn't look at the judge. I didn't look at the jury. I looked at her. Straight into her eyes. "My name," I said, my voice steady, "is the man you thought you could destroy. My name is the man who loved you, trusted you, and gave you everything. And your name? Your name is betrayal." She flinched, tears spilling down her face. I didn't stop. "You didn't just try to sell my company. You tried to sell my life, my future, my legacy. You thought greed would save you, but it has only damned you. And now, the same hands that held you up will be the ones to watch you fall. I will not forgive. I will not forget. And I will not allow you or anyone connected to you to ever touch what I've built again." The courtroom was silent. Even the judge leaned back slightly, studying me. I finished with one last sentence. "You made your choice. Now live with it." When I returned to my seat, she broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Her family shifted uncomfortably in their cuffs, but there was no sympathy for them either. The judge denied bail. The gavel slammed. And just like that, their freedom was gone. As they were escorted out, she turned to me one last time, her voice cracking, desperate. "I'm sorry. Please, don't let them take me. I still love you. But love without loyalty is nothing. And loyalty without truth is poison." I leaned back in my chair, arms folded, eyes locked on hers as the agents dragged her away. Not a word left my mouth. I didn't owe her any. And in that silence, she finally understood. This wasn't just an arrest. This was her reckoning. When the gavel fell and the judge denied her bail, you'd think my story ended there. But no, the truth is, revenge doesn't end with an arrest. Revenge is about finishing the job. Because you see, betrayal isn't just about the act, it's about the ripple effect. The lies, the scars, the broken trust. And I wasn't about to leave any cracks in the foundation of my life. Not for her. Not for her family. Not for anyone. The morning after the hearing, I called my lawyer again. This time, it wasn't about divorce. That was already done. No, this time it was about legacy. My legacy. I sat across from him in his office, the city skyline stretching out behind the glass windows, sunlight pouring across the polished table between us. He slid another stack of documents toward me. These weren't just papers, they were my future. My will. My final statement to the world about who mattered and who didn't. And let me tell you, I made damn sure her name was nowhere to be found. Everything I had built, every hotel, every property, every account, it was all being rerouted, redirected, and locked away. I wasn't leaving her a cent. Not a house. Not a car. Not even a piece of jewelry. The empire she tried to steal would never belong to her, not even in crumbs. Instead, I chose a new path. The orphanage. You see, there had always been a place in my heart for those kids, children abandoned, forgotten, betrayed by the very people meant to love them. Maybe because, in some twisted way, I saw a piece of myself in them. Now I had a reason to act. I signed the papers with a steady hand, and with each stroke of ink, I felt lighter. For the first time in weeks, maybe even months, I felt free. My wealth would go to those who deserved it most, not to someone who had already proven her heart was made of nothing but greed. But I wasn't done. The next step was making sure she, and her family, understood just how permanent their fall was. I arranged a visit. Not out of love. Not out of pity. Out of clarity. Out of finality. When I walked into that prison visiting room, the atmosphere was heavy, suffocating. Cold metal chairs, thick glass dividers, guards stationed at every corner. And there she was, on the other side. The once proud woman I called my wife, now reduced to a shell of herself. Her hands trembled as she lifted the phone to her ear. Her eyes were red, her hair unkempt, her face pale. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking through the static of the receiver. "Please, I made a mistake. I was pressured. I didn't mean to hurt you. Give me another chance." I stared at her for a long moment, the silence heavy between us. Then, I lifted the phone, my voice calm, steady, unshaken. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. And now, you're living with it." Her tears fell harder, her hand pressing against the glass like she could somehow reach me through it. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. "I've rewritten my will," I continued. "Everything I own, everything I've built, is going to the orphanage. To children who understand the value of love, because they've lived without it. You'll get nothing. Not now. Not ever." Her face twisted, a mix of pain and desperation. She banged her hand against the glass, shaking her head. "No. Please. Don't do this to me. I still love you." I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a whisper so sharp it could cut through steel. "Love isn't proven in words. It's proven in loyalty. And you killed yours the moment you walked into that office with my documents. So here's the truth, you don't love me. You never did. You loved what I could give you. And now, you'll love nothing." Her sobs filled the room, but to me, it sounded like justice. I set the phone down slowly, stood up, and walked away without looking back. The guards closed the door behind me, and with each step, I felt the chains of betrayal breaking off my shoulders. When I stepped outside, the sun was warm on my face. For the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like a cruel joke. It felt like a new beginning. I had lost a wife, yes. But what I really lost was an illusion. And in return, I had gained something far more powerful: clarity, freedom, and the knowledge that my legacy would live on where it mattered most. As I drove past the orphanage later that day, I saw kids running in the yard, laughing, free. And in that laughter, I heard something I hadn't felt in weeks: peace. Revenge had been served. Justice had been delivered. And the chapter of betrayal? Closed. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this: betrayal doesn't break you. It defines you. It shows you who you are, and more importantly, who you'll never be again. And as for her, she chose greed. She chose lies. She chose betrayal. And I chose to erase her from my life. Forever. And that's how betrayal turned into revenge, and revenge into justice. But tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have done the same, or would you have forgiven? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'm reading every single one. If this story gripped you, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more chilling tales, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay sharp, because you never know who's plotting behind your back.